Is to, and it was before I got the announcement that it had to come out, my plan is to take it, hopefully, to key cities across the country in a portable form. So I'm technically putting that together on how I can do that in the easiest way, and yet without sacrifice to the quality of the kind of presentation it can be if it's done right. And I know it can be done right. It was shortly after Cinerama came out in New York, as a matter of fact, that it was asked to go to the Damascus World Trade Fair. And when that happened, it meant not only would they be going out of the country for the first time, but it would be a system that would be set up outdoors, but still employ even the ribbon screen in an outdoor environment. It went to that World's Fair and eclipsed anything, including the Russian display that was at that fair that year. And that's why it was urgently needed for America to come up with their smaller budget that year with something really meaningfully remembered as the American exhibit. And some of you know, maybe don't know, that the name Cinerama itself is an anagram for American. By rearranging the letters of Cinerama, it spells American. And hence the logo for Cinerama is, if you will notice on top of the theater, which I saved that from the local Daybell Cinerama Theater before they tore it down, that the letters in Cinerama are red, white, and blue. So that's something, as many stories can be told about Cinerama, is very important that to remember, because it was an American invention, not a Russian invention that the Russians claimed later on when they came out with Kino Panorama. But an American invention by a genius, as Lowell Thomas had described him, in the name of Fred Waller, who unfortunately I never got to meet, but I did have the pleasure of meeting his charming widow, who also is now gone. But she was so helpful to us, and what a pleasure it was to me to see her when she came to the opening of the Cinerama that I put in England about 6 years ago. And she was sitting in the seat right before me when we had our first showing of Cinerama that I had installed several months before, and they were waiting for his 10-year anniversary of the museum over there to open. So she was watching, matter of fact, once again, this exact print that you just saw. Because the new print that the museum was supposed to have would not be finished in time, they called me after I got back from installing Cinerama and asked me if they could borrow this print because their new print would not be ready. And so I sent this print that I've assembled to them to use for the opening, and they used it for several months over there. So it's that kind of thing as well, because of the importance of the photography contained within those first 7 films, for it to always be able to be displayed on a large screen with the quality of motion picture film. And so far, not to knock video projection, but video projection has still a long ways to go to match the quality of motion picture film when you're talking about displaying images on a huge screen. I don't mean a huge home screen, but I mean in a theater where the screen, like in Seattle, where I had just installed Cinerama for them, is 32 foot high. This screen is about 20 feet, not quite 2 stories tall. So you can imagine how video definitely cannot reach that kind of commitment, you know, to fulfill that motion picture. So the other part I wanted to tell you about the success story here is by Larry Smith cleverly, you know, knowing what to do from day one, or thinking of these things because he wanted it to happen so much, for this to happen as it has, for us to be here as long as we've been, to defy what the landlord thought could never happen. And it was because of Larry cleverly coming up with the weekend of Cinerama, where not only could you come and see one film in Cinerama, as it was when all the films were brand new and first run, you could only see that film that was currently showing. But by having it to our advantage, and where I had more than one film to show, to have a Cinerama weekend, which would allow people to travel greater distances and justify such a trip. So that's just one of many ways that Larry Smith has put together all the things that made the operations here, for people to come here and see it successful. And that's what my comments here before you got any questions were important to me, so that you would know how much I appreciate the work he did and everybody that helped put together technically, the PR, the operations of the Cinerama Society, to get everybody knowing and remembering that Cinerama is not, as long as I'm around anyhow, going to be not be able to be seen. Right now, I hate to have to tell you to go to England to see it. I'm going to get a little closer than that, I hope. But it depends on my speculation on how successful I am to convince people who have the right kind of theater in key cities where I can go in for a short period of time and set up a portable system so they can see it, and maybe even more people then will be able to come and see it without having to go to the expense of traveling great distances. So in a way, I'm doing what Cinerama did then. The only difference is they went into permanent locations thinking it would be there forever. I know from their history as well as the history here, that's not the way to do it. It has to be in key cities where that key city, as usual, is a hub for people to come to see other things as well. And that's the plan down the road. I want to get Cinerama convinced to make new prints for me to do that. That's a very important part, because these prints, although are still holding up through taking care of them the way I know to take care of them, that's not going to be forever. They say nothing is forever. So, and I would truly welcome brand new prints and not have the worry of what if something happens, to whatever I'm running. It's the only one of whatever it is I'm showing. Right now, I'm the only person that has a working, runnable print of Cinerama Holiday. But if any of you will be here tomorrow, don't let it alarm you, although I got a little nervous myself. The center panel tomorrow, when it actually comes on the screen in Cinerama, you'll actually see that the film has shrunk for a couple minutes on the screen, where you can see the sprocket holes, which I can't do anything about, because it has shrunk enough that it comes in and is seen by the lens on the projector. But that's only toward the beginning, and then it's all right after that. So I would love to be able to say I could show you Cinerama Holiday in the original colors that I remember, and also without that kind of a problem to be concerned about. But for what I have and what we are running, to my knowledge, everything like Seven Wonders of the World and Cinerama Holiday are still runnable. They just have turned pink, but we have new soundtracks for all of them. So, end of my statements here. Do you have a question over there again, please?
Did it turn pink just because of age?
Because of the age of a certain kind of film stock called Eastman. Now, if it had been a true Technicolor print, like this one is, that's why this one still has retained its color, even though it's the first picture that was made. And ironically, the last picture of the film that I have, Hal the West was one, is every bit, well, actually even better in condition than what you saw here, as far as good color, and people having seen that print readily would be quick to tell you that it's a beautiful print, and I can't believe myself that it still looks that good after all these years.
And I plan to be here tomorrow.
You plan to be here tomorrow? Okay. By the way, on Cinerama Holiday, the second film, that in itself, I mean, there's so many stories, like I say, to tell, but can you imagine what it would be like if you're back then, you see this process run for 2 years in New York with no Hollywood stars, and yet would run that long. What would you do then for the second film? How do you make the next film, and what do you put in that film to make it successful? Well, they called upon the audiences still going to see This Is Cinerama to give them ideas of what they would like to see. So it's a film where Lowell Thomas had nothing to do with in the second film, but he came back to do the third film, Seven Wonders of the World. But in Cinerama Holiday, we were so lucky as to, first of all, when I was running the film in my home, I had a booklet that was sold in the lobby for Cinerama Holiday. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be neat if I could locate maybe John and Betty Marsh, who were the young married couple from America that appeared in the film back in 1955 when it was made. And just on a hunch, I picked up the phone book. I knew that he was a dentist, according to what the book said about the people that were in the movie. So I called Kansas City and asked, do you have a John Marsh? And the operator says, well, there's several. And then I thought, well, probably won't do any good. Do you have a dentist by the name of John Marsh? And she said, do you want his home or his office? And this was, then I thought, well, I'm in there now, you know. So would you believe John and Betty, though married at the time and still good friends present day, although I have to be telling you that John was killed in a car crash not too long ago. But before that happened, we had one glorious day here at the Neon Movies. And that's something else, you know, about this auditorium right here. I mean, the people who have been here from all walks of life, famous filmmakers, confessing that they did what they did because Cinerama was so impressive to them when they were young. People like Joe Donnie and as you saw, the person in the video that did Pulp Fiction, Quentin is great, that was changing lenses. That was changing lenses because with this process, the peripheral view that the three eyes of the Cinerama camera have are the same as you being the camera. So the easiest way to understand why that's so important to feeling like you're really there on this big curved screen is that if you move forward, that's your way of getting a close-up of the thing or person that you're wanting to see. You just don't stand here and put a longer lens to bring that person up. It's not the same thing. The peripheral view is restricted. So you are the camera at all times if it's really a film that's been made using the Cinerama camera. And that's why that was lost. And they had the audacity to say in Cinerama on pictures like 2001 and Battle of the Bulge and Grand Prix. And like I say, the first film I really loved, but didn't like the idea that it was no longer Cinerama. Yes?
A couple of comments on, well, concerning the Russian Kino Panorama. You ran this a couple of times, and I noticed that they also have an interchangeable lens.
Yes.
But the way it was used in the Russian film and more in the Australian test footage, it looked like CinemaScope with lines running through it because they never used the full, they were afraid to use the full wide angle. Comment number 2, in 2001, they did use a super wide angle lens that did have the peripheral view for a couple of shots.
Right.
I was, one of my seatmates had discussed it. I think this gentleman right over here and I were discussing that was the only single lens, quote unquote, Cinerama film that did have a peripheral view that I've seen outside of Around the World in 80 Days.
Yeah, well, they even in the Taddeo process, once again, we go back to changing lenses on the camera. I mean, 70 millimeter, the bug eye lens was actually that you see Mike Todd in pictures of Mike Todd standing by this giant bug eye lens. That lens was very rarely used when it meant photographing the actual characters of the film in the room or whatever. They would, but Todd knew the tricks of Cinerama as far as what were neat scenes to show in peripheral view, and by using the bug eye lens, even though it was distorted, you know. If you watch Oklahoma, for instance, using that wide angle lens in that first audio picture, you can see the people talking kind of left of center of the screen, but if you look over on the right, you'll see a door that's very bent. But you don't notice it because you're looking at the people, you know, talking that's on the opposite side of the screen, and it's just an empty room over there, other than the doorway, you know.